मीडिया वेव्स टीवी तो खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम दे विच आप सब दा स्वागत है जी आयां नु।
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha, September 25th, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at 604-626-3144. NDP promises thousands of new homes at 60% market value. BC NDP leader David Eby is promising the party will provide 25,000 new homes at 60% of market value to help British Columbians put a roof over their head if the party wins the upcoming election. In an announcement in Surrey on Wednesday, Eby shared that if his party forms the next provincial government, it will help 5,000 middle-class families to a year over 5 years get into the housing market by covering 40% of the purchase price of a home. Eby explained the $1.29 billion program will be done through partnership with non-profits, home builders and institutions that might be able to provide land. We can't have especially young people who are thinking about building a life for themselves in British Columbia, giving up hope that there's an opportunity for them here to have the same chances that their parents had, Eby said on Wednesday. The announcements come just days after the province, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh nations announced they would be building housing at Heatherlands using the same model, 60% of market value with 40% of the cost covered by provincial financing. The opening doors to home ownership programs provides financing to would-be homeowners, not a mortgage for a grant. The NDP explains that when a buyer sells their unit, the provincial contribution is repaid plus 40% of the appreciation in the value of the home. This allows the province to recover the full capital cost as well as all financing costs and a small return without imposing cost on the seller, the NDP stated in a release. Eby explained the benefits of to homeowners also include smaller down payments, smaller monthly payments, and taxpayers will be protected. If home values go up, revenue to the public goes up and resources for more affordable housing projects are more available. Housing prices go down, taxpayers are protected. This is a loan. This is not a grant and the homeowner pays interest on it just like they would any other kind of financing, he added.
ਅੱਜ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ डेविड ओबी होरां ने ऐलान किया कि अगर उन्हां दी पार्टी सरकार बनाउंदी है जितदी है बहुमत लैके तां ओह 25,000 ਦੇ करीब ਜਿਹੜੇ ਘਰ ਨੇ अगले आउण वाले 5 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣਾਉਣਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਵੈਸੇ ਘਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਫੋਰਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਸਕਣਗੇ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ 40% ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਪਾਏਗੀ ਲੋਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਬਾਕੀ 60% ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦਦਾਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਲਏਗਾ। याद रहे उन्होंने कहा ये उपराले जिहड़े ने ये सारे दे सारे नौजवान तबके दे विच महंगाई के कारण घर ना अफोर्ड कर सकण वाले इस वातावरण दे विच उन्होंने किया और उन्होंने ये अनाउंसमेंट है जिहड़ी कुछ दिन पहला मूल निवासी भाईचारे के 3 कबीलियां वालों सरकार दे नाल मिल के इस तरह के प्रोजैक्ट के ऐलान किए गए सन जिस दे विच कि जिहड़ा 40% हिस्सा है सरकार का वो बतौर लोन है, किसी भी तरह की सबसिडी नहीं है और किसी भी तरह की सहायता नहीं है।
Patient care is on the verge of collapse, Abbotsford Hospital doctors. Frontline physicians at Abbotsford Regional Hospital are sounding the alarm for what they feel is an out-of-control healthcare crisis. They spoke exclusively to a group of doctors, some who have been granted anonymity, who warn patients' care is being jeopardized. Surgeon Dr. Terry Lang says the facility isn't very big and as the region's population grows, staff are overwhelmed. She says ARH is a no-refusal site, which means even if there's no room, they're required to continue to accept patients. These doctors say capacity at the hospital is currently at 130%, and as a result, patient beds are sometimes placed in a shower areas of other patients' hospital rooms. You are lucky if you get the shower room because at least it has a door, said Liwang. People are in the hallways. If you are lucky, you get a partition because I'm sure we are running out of those too. You get the alcove. You might get the patient lounge, which is divided into a 3-person room. They're not even rooms. It's out of control. The doctors say that for years they have gone through the appropriate channels to ask for help but feel overlooked and ignored. Doctors say there's a shortage of resources, money, space, nurses, and doctors, including hospitals. Leong breaks down what an average visit could be for a patient. If you think you had a broken leg and you came through the emergency department looking for help, you come in and there is a congestion everywhere. It takes you 2 hours to physically get into the department, she explained. It takes you another 10 plus hours to finally see a doctor because they are so behind, and where you are waiting to see a doctor, you are in a pod full of patients. Once you've finally seen the doctor, you are waiting another maybe 2 or 3 hours before you actually get a bed up on the ward. Leong adds surgical wait times are even longer and will get bumped back to accommodate emergencies. These frontline physicians say the issues at the hospital are the result of years of neglect from the Fraser Health Authority and are adamant that care at the facility is on the verge of collapse. The physicians are pleading for the BC government and the health authority to give equal attention to all hospitals. They feel Surrey, for example, gets a lot of attention partly because they believe it to be a political battleground. Retention is one of the biggest pieces. We are in such a bad situation where we've hit the point where it's a downward slope. It's a vicious cycle. Our manpower shortages are so low that those who are remaining are burning out. So they leave, and when you have attrition, then you are not really encouraging new people to come in. When it comes to coping on a mental and emotional level, Leong admits staff are not doing well. To add salt to the wound, she pays staff don't have guaranteed parking spots. Additionally, they can't park on the side streets because it's a residential zone, and some staff have been told to take transit or ride-hailing services to work. Leong says she's almost among those who had been ticketed for parking in undesignated spots in the staff or patient lot. She questions why either are having to pay. One doctor said who doesn't want to be identified publicly describes another key issue, saying there aren't enough physicians and a lack of support for most responsible physician services doctors who are assigned to patients, whether it's an emergency room or another unit. The doctor says on any given day there are patients without a doctor, including those in the ER, pointing out ER or physicians are drowning in demand and have no one to hand a case file over to, so they juggle both attending to patients in the ER and those who are admitted, which this physician feels is resulting in suboptimal care. This physician says that doctor contracts should be modified by the BC government instead of being hospital to hospital. They say the agreement should be based on things like patient demand, various metrics, resources, and the population. It's like giving a person a rain jacket who lives in Surrey and saying, I'm going to give the same rain jacket to someone who lives up north in the dead of winter, and say, well, it works for people in Surrey. Why doesn't it work for you? They shared. Currently, ARH doctors don't have a contract. This doctor shared with the one of hospitalist having ended several years ago, while the one of for internal medicine expiring early this year. This doctor says the doctor-to-patient ratio at ARH currently is at least 20 patients for every physician, stressing morale in low. The trickle-down effect is very real. When one doctor asks another for help, how do you say no? The workload is high. The number of consults for our service has skyrocketed, they shared. In a stunning admission, this doctor shared that staff don't want their own loved ones cared for at ARH. The doctor says there is a severe lack of specialists at ARH and it's burdening other facilities to take on their patients. Abbotsford Regional Hospital is a regional hospital that's expected to act like one without resources, the doctor added. This doctor goes on to say resources so far are very West heavy. Royal Columbian Hospital is getting a new tower. Burnaby is getting a new building. Surrey Memorial Hospital is getting a new tower and increased services in Cloverdale. It ends there. ARH needs a new tower, needs an outpatient center. If those services are there, they could hire more specialists. I really hope the Ministry of Health cares about us too. The so-called hallway healthcare is heartbreaking, the doctor said. If you put yourself in the shoes of the patient or their family, it's awful. The children will advocate for their parents and they'll They'll ask us, my father has been in the hallway for 3 days. Why aren't you finding a bed for us? They explain, I have parents too. I can feel their pain too, but there's nothing we can do. We can't expand the hospital building or kick out existing patients to make beds for them. We feel demoralized and really quite helpless. The doctor has a warning to incoming patients, expect to wait a long time and actually still not have a doctor to see you. Fraser Health did not say anything, but the request was denied due to the upcoming provincial election. During the provincial election and interregnum period, the government is in a caretaker mode and all of government of BC communications are limited to critical health and public safety information as well as statutory requirements. Thank you for your understanding, the health authority said.
ਸਰੀ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੁਣ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਡਾਕਟਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਛਾਣ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਪਤ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬੁਰੇ ਨੇ। ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 130% ਹੈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, ਜਿੱਥੇ 100 ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟ ਰੱਖੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ 130 ਰੱਖੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਵਾਰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਦਾ ਏਰੀਆ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੱਕੀ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਉਸ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੰਜਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਡਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ 3 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਡੀਲ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਹਾਲਵੇਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨੇ ਵੀ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹਜੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਲਾਈਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਨੂੰ 2 ਘੰਟੇ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, 10 ਘੰਟੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਇੰਤਜ਼ਾਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਣ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ, ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਐਡਮਿਟ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਜਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤਾਂ ਕਈ ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਔਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੱਛਮੀ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਰੁਕ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਭਾਵ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀ ਬਰਨਬੀ, ਸਰੀ ਤੇ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਵਰਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਲਾਕੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਸਪਤਾਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਸੁਵਿਧਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਅਦੇ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਰੀਜਨਲ ਜਨਰਲ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਤਵੱਜੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ। ਔਰ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਦੜੇ ਹਾਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਅਥਾਰਟੀਜ਼ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਮੱਦੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਆ ਸਿੱਧੀ ਇੱਕ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ।
Metro Vancouver Mounties seized drugs, explosives, firearms in multiple raids. Mounties in Metro Vancouver say they have seized more than a dozen guns, ammunition, cash and explosives in multiple raids across the region. The Surrey RCMP says the end of August it searched a home on Industrial Road just north of King George Boulevard. With the help of the Lower Mainland Integrated Emergency Response Team, Surrey Mounties found illicit drugs, $10,000, 4 handguns, ammunition rounds, illegal magazines, radio jammers, stolen vehicles and license plates, 16 other firearms and approximately 30 pounds of explosives. Mounties say 12 people were arrested during the raid. On September 10th, another search was done at the same location after further grounds of trafficking were observed. Cash, meth, cannabis, prescription opioids, various pills, ammunition, a silencer, long guns, and 2 crossbows were seized. Upon execution of the first search warrant, the sheer volume of drugs, firearms, and explosives located by police inside this fortified unit over business visited by the unsuspecting public may be the most dangerous situation I've seen in my service in Surrey, stated Senior Sergeant Nigel Poronga in a release on Wednesday. Unfortunately, in this investigation, crime did not stop with this enforcement, necessitating a second search warrant execution at the same location. This wanton disregard for public safety is inexcusable. I extend my sincere appreciation to both the North CRU investigators and the members of the Lower Mainland IERT and Explosive Disposal Unit for their excellent performances for the duties in executing this search warrant. Meanwhile, Mounties in Burnaby say 4 people have been charged following a year-long investigation into firearm-related offences. 2 men and 2 women now facing trafficking, controlled substances and prohibited weapon-related charges. During search warrants related to charges, police allege almost $15,000 in cash, a stolen handgun, ammunition, a silencer, and almost 1 kilogram of illicit drug were seized. The amount of drugs and weapons taken off our streets as a result of this investigation is substantial, said Sergeant Randy Mortensen. Our drugs and organized crime section remains committed to combating the illicit drugs trade and the violence that comes with that.
ਲੋਅਰ ਮੇਨਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਨਸ਼ੇ, ਅਸਲਾ ਤੇ ਕੈਸ਼ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਵਾਰੰਟ ਲੈਣ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਤਫਤੀਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਜ਼ਬਤ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਅਗਸਤ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 12 ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਅਸਲਾ, ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ, $10,000 ਕੈਸ਼ ਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਸੰਵਿਧਾਨਕ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਸਨ। ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਉਸੇ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਤੰਬਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੇਰ ਰੇਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਰਹੀਆਂ। ਔਰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਫਸਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੈਰਾਨੀ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਨਤਕ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਛਾਪਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ $15,000 ਕੈਸ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸਲਾ ਤੇ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬਰਾਮਦ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ। ਔਰ ਵਿਭਾਗ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਤਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜ਼ਬਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਲਤ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ।
2 Canadians dead in Lebanon as Liberal MP urges more action for de-escalation. At least 2 Canadians have died in the escalating violence in Lebanon as Israel strikes kill Hezbollah militants along with civilians and children. Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of the deaths of 2 Canadian citizens in Lebanon, where another has reached out for help with injuries. Liberal MP Faisal Al-Khoury was born in Lebanon and says Canada needs to push its peer countries more to stop a cycle in violence in the Middle East, or it could lead to a world war. He says his cousin who works in Beirut saying shocking amounts of bodily trauma is a recent explosion with numerous of people requiring their eyes to be removed. The Montreal area MP says the port of Beirut must be protected from attacks as it might be the only means of evacuating thousands of Canadians if that is required. Al-Khoury says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will make a statement today about the situation in Lebanon. Last Friday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said close to 45,000 Canadians are in Lebanon. She has been urging them for months to leave while commercial flights are still available. Israel insists it is trying to convince Hezbollah to stop firing rockets at northern Israel. But Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae, said Monday that Israel must think more consequentially about what's happening, less impulsively. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told reporters Tuesday that both Israel and Hezbollah must de-escalate.
ਇਜ਼ਰਾਈਲ ਤੇ ਹਜ਼ਬੁੱਲਾ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਇਸ ਜੰਗ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਹੋਏ ਹਮਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਪੁਸ਼ਟੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਲੈਬਨਾਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੀ, ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹਾਲਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਸਨੇ ਮਦਦ ਦੀ ਗੁਹਾਰ ਲਗਾਈ ਹੈ। ਹਾਲਾਤ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਨਿਘਾਰ ਵੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਮੌਂਟਰੀਅਲ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ MP ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਮਦਦ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਦੋਵਾਂ ਧਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੰਗ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਠਹਿਰਾਅ ਆਉਣਾ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ ਹੈ।
Majority of residents in 4 Canadian cities believe their mayor and council are out of touch, City News poll. The majority of residents in Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary and Vancouver all believe their mayor and city council are out of touch with what residents want, according to a poll. On survey conducted by Maru Public Opinion found on an individual city basis, 74% of those living in Calgary felt their mayor and council were out of touch, followed by Edmonton at 72%, Vancouver at 70%, while 61% of those in Toronto agreed. On average, across the cities, just 1 in 4 residents believe their mayor deserved to be re-elected. However, 36% of Toronto respondents felt Mayor Olivia Chow deserved re-election, and 58% believe she was doing a good job. Edmonton's Mayor Amarjeet Sohi has the next best numbers, with 26% believing he deserved re-election and 47% said he's doing a good job. Half of those in Vancouver felt Ken Sim in Vancouver was doing a good job, but just 25% said he deserved a re-election. Coming up last was Calgary's Mayor Jyoti Gondak, with just 18% of respondents saying she deserved a re-election and 41% saying she was doing a good job. Vancouver took the top spot when it came to whether city councils were doing a good job, with 55% agreeing, following by Toronto at 52% of those polled in Edmonton and Calgary. 44% said Edmonton's council was doing a good job and 42% in Calgary. When it comes to pride in how their city operates, Vancouver also came up on top. 43% said they were proud of the city. This was followed by those in Edmonton at 49%, Toronto at 48%, and Calgary at 47%. Four cities' average fines is split between those residents who agree they are proud of their city and how it operates, 49 versus those who disagree, 51%. For those who have the most pride in their own city operates, Vancouver leads the way, 53% agreed, 47% disagreed, followed by those residing in Edmonton, 49% agrees, 51% disagree. Toronto, 48% agrees and 52% disagrees, and Calgary, 47% agrees and 53% disagrees. The poll also examined issues important to citizens, including taxes, recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, and public transit. Across the four cities, an average of 62% said they would not support a residential tax increase for needed municipality service and infrastructure. Calgary disagreed the most at 69%, followed by those in Edmonton at 62%. In Vancouver and Toronto, 59% and 58% of those of respondents respectively said they wouldn't support the tax increase. When it comes to a tax raise at the gas pump to pay for road maintenance, all four cities also had the majority of respondents disagreed that tax need to be raised. There are a similar majority of citizens who disagreed with the need of road toll for anyone who drives into their city. Torontonians were the least likely to agree that their public transit system was on the right track and serving them well, with just 45% agreeing. This was followed by Edmonton, 48%, Calgary at 51%, and Vancouver, 59%. The COVID-19 pandemic was tough on the downtown core of each major city, and the virus drove most workers home, but most of those polled believe that the downtowns have recovered. That sentiment was highest in Toronto, with 58% of respondents believing they had recovered. 52% of those polled in Vancouver agreed, followed by 51% in Calgary and 47% in Edmonton. Residents in all four cities were also asked to rate the healthcare in their cities, including how long it takes to be treated in an emergency room and their access to family doctor. On average, only 1/3 had a positive view of their emergency rooms, and a slim majority had positive views of their family doctor. Calgary had the worst views of their emergency room access, with 73% of their sentiment being negative, followed closely behind the 71%. It was slightly less in Vancouver at 64% negative, and Toronto with 61% of those polled having a negative impression. However, when it comes down to it, the majority believe they live in a world-class city that is a good place to raise family. Toronto and Vancouver felt that the strongest about the cities being world-class, with 64% agreeing Toronto and 63% in Vancouver, followed by Calgary at 57% and Edmonton at 51%. The cities were swabbed, though, when it came to being a good place to raise a family. Just 55% in Toronto and 59% in Vancouver believed their cities were a good place to raise a family, while the sentiment was much higher in Edmonton at 71% and 70% in Calgary.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ 4 ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਰੇਸ਼ੋ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਏ ਆ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ, ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ, ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਤੇ ਐਡਮਿੰਟਨ ਹੈ, ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਲੋਕਲ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਦਲਣ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਨੁਕਤੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ, ਪਬਲਿਕ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਜ਼ਿਟ ਦੇ ਮਤਲਕ ਵੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛੇ ਗਏ, ਔਰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਿਆਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਪੁੱਛੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਊਜ਼ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲਏ ਗਏ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ 4 ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਪੈਲਿਟੀ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ।
Bloc gives Liberal October 29 deadline to meet demands or face potential early election. The bloc cubicles is giving the Liberal government a deadline of October 29 to pass two pieces of legislation related to old age security and supply management. If the Liberals do not comply, bloc leader Yves Francois Blanchard says his party will begin discussions with other opposition parties about toppling the government. What we are proposing is good for retired persons in Quebec, but also in Canada. It's good for milk, eggs, and poultry producers in Quebec, but also in Canada. So that's good for everybody, Blanchard said in a news conference today. The House of Commons will hold two votes today that could, but likely won't bring down the minority Liberal government, and the Conservatives have already put the House of Commons on notice that more such votes are coming. The NDP and Bloc cubicles have already said they will oppose a Conservative non-confidence motion that aims to trigger an early election. The Bloc is looking to capitalize on its newfound power in a minority parliament to make gains for its voters in Quebec, who tend to be older. Protecting supply management is also a major priority for dairy farmers in Quebec. In exchange for its support, the Bloc wants the government to increase old age security for all seniors and bolster Canada's supply management system. Blanchard says if the government agrees to its demand, the Liberals will avoid an election before Christmas. However, he emphasizes that this body will not blindly support the government's agenda even if the Liberals agree to Bloc's condition. We will not ever support any motion or vote that would go against who are and who we are is well known, Blanchard said, noting that this party will vote against motions and bills that Bloc perceives to be against the interest of Quebec. So the government has to remain pretty careful. Members of Parliament will have to vote on another confidence motion related to the Liberals' proposed capital gains tax changes. That motion is expected to pass with support from the NDP. Blanchard said people will have to wait to see how the Bloc will vote. On Tuesday evening, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre put forward two more non-confidence motions he plans to put before the House. One quote others opposition leaders' own words of criticism for the Prime Minister and the government in a bid to wedge them into taking down the government. The other cities' housing cost, crime rates, centralized government, and the impact of the carbon price on food costs. The Conservatives can table either of the two new motions for debate on Thursday. If any of the non-confidence motions were to pass, the government would be defeated and the Canadians would very likely see an immediate election.
ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ ਬਲਾਕ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਧਮਕੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ 29 ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਅਗਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਹਿਮਤੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੀ ਸਹਿਮਤੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਣਗੇ, ਭਾਵ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡੇਗ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਨਾਨ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੋਟ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਬਲਾਕ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੇਗਾ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ। ਪਰ ਹੁਣ 29 ਤਰੀਕ ਵਾਲੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੰਗ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਡੇਰੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਮਿਲਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਧੇ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਮੁੱਖ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ है।
इसी के साथ हमें दीजिएगा इजाजत। खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time, goodbye and be safe.